joined today by G.C.McKay. G.C.McKay is the author of several books, most notably Heather, Ubar, Chameleon, and most recently Left on Red. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm going through that. I don't know whether you get it yourself, but whenever I have to put a book together, I think about probably 6 to 8 weeks afterwards, I'm just shattered. I'm just really tired. I'm exhausted, and I have to do book marketing, which I just don't like doing. So,
the hard part, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been a lot of work, a lot of formatting, especially. It was quite an experience. I've come to view you after reading 2 of your books. I've read Heather and Left on Red now. I've come to view you as a social commentator.
I thought you were going to say psychopath.
No.
But same thing, maybe. I don't know.
Left on Red, it's like it came across as a kind of study how social media has just taken over everything, all of our lives, especially the younger generation. So let's start with the title, Left on Red. That basically means when somebody has read your message, but they haven't bothered to reply, they've left you on red.
It does. But the reason it's called that is, I think it encapsulates the feeling of the characters. I got an afterword in the book, which is probably the first time. Yeah, it's definitely the first time I've ever written anything to do with like introductions or whatever. But I kind of almost felt obliged to do it to kind of, well, probably just make sure my point was put across. But maybe, yeah, to me it's more of about a feeling, I suppose. It's that kind of like despondent, like I read things about like, you know, young men and women applying for thousands of jobs, just as an example, and you know, you get nothing. And there's just a lot of this kind of melancholic or ennui out there these days. I think just Rejection is actually a book I read recently by Tony Tomatho. I can't remember his name, but it's quite hard hitting. It's actually a little bit similar to Left on Red in terms of its grimness. But yeah, and I just quite liked it as a title overall, and I tried to kind of shape the book to that regard. So I mean, they're not really, you know, in the literal sense, they're not left on red, but they are kind of fringe people, I suppose. Like they're kind of your average people, really. But I would say that they're struggling against modern day capitalism and social media in general, and yeah, the traumas that kind of arise from them, I suppose.
I think in the afterwards, you say that the main theme of the book is fear of rejection, right? I think that's the theme that goes through all the stories. I mean, I quite enjoyed all the stories. The first one's about webcam porn, Aftertaste. That's about a young woman who basically gets kind of exploited by a fan. You've also got Inceldom. You've got Suicide, assisted suicide story in there that's quite good. And Revenge kept popping up, I noticed.
It did.
2 or 3 stories seemed about revenge. What one? FaceTimer. FaceTimer is obviously about revenge. And what was the other one?
I'll say Chameleon is as well. Chameleon is probably its most
the last
story.
Yeah, so there's a whole range of themes there, and it covers a lot of ground. It's quite an experience. Your prose is very elaborate. It's very detailed. So some writers like a clear, lucid style, just strip everything down. I think you're the opposite. You're every page like very rich, almost.
I don't know. I suppose it's one of those things when you get to a certain point, like having any objectivity on your own work is kind of gone. Like it's hopeless because you just gone. You know, you have your original conception of a story, then you have the result, and that's how far away that is from it. Usually the case, but then
Yeah.
knowing whether it works or not, I suppose that you get a kind of instinctual thing for it. So there was a lot with probably all of the stories, but depending on how long ago I wrote it, it's tricky to know what you think works. I mean, I think Aftertaste was a slightly risky one to open with because it's very bizarre, and I almost feel like it's almost autistic in the way it tells the story, because it's like kind of, I wanted to try and convey the thoughts of what an AI would be if it was analyzing a story, but then also adding some sort of error 404 in the middle of it. And then of course that kind of turns everything on its head, and it starts to become almost a glitch in of itself when it's trying to tell the story, because it's so deranged. This probably makes it sound like it's completely nonsensical, but it's experimental, the piece overall, I would say. And I think I tried to get that conciseness mostly with tribute, because I wanted because it was from the perspective of a like 15-year-old boy.
Yes.
I think I found it a bit easier to do it with that, because it was like, no, just simplify it. And I still think he possibly comes across as a bit self-aware for his age, but I limited that. And I'm probably mentioning this because there was one little section I wanted to add to that story, but then I kept looking at it thinking it's too self-aware. He wouldn't realize this, you know. But
right. And what was the whole Lana Del Rey video that story touches upon? Is there a theory that her video games video is homemade porn, right?
Yeah. I think I came up with that possibly because I might have suspected that. I don't really think it is, but I think I got the idea from a Beyonce track, which has a line about, if you like it, then you got to put a ring on it, meaning like marriage. But I kind of spun it as a cock ring, and then I must have listened to video games, and then thought, well, it's probably about making your own porn. But that story in general came from a really short, almost erotica story that I was penning, that I originally called Peep Show. And when I read back on it, because I tend to like write something and then I leave it alone for months, sometimes maybe even a year, and then when I go back, I kind of have this new kind of perspective. And then if I've got different ideas, I start trying to throw them into it. And and then I read something about young kids selling these types of vids. This is actually something that happens. Yeah, so I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I kind of developed it from there, really. So it's got a very strange past, but the video game thing, I suppose, to get meta, I was like, oh, okay, if I'm introducing it with that idea, then at some point it has to become, it's like a Chekhov's gun kind of thing, where it's like I can't just have it randomly mentioned for no reason. And then it felt natural to bring it of like, okay, he's going to start planning to make his own little video in
But it's easy. It's the longest story in the book, I think, isn't it? It's the longest one, but I did enjoy it the most, I think. It's about, like, you could say it's about the fatality of the internet, really. Because if something like that goes out, somebody makes a sex video and then everybody in the neighborhood gets a copy, it could lead to suicide. It must have happened before, numerous times. That's another story that touches upon a lot of different subjects, different topics. I think the strength of these stories in this collection is about the insights kind of woven into the prose, rather than being about the plot points. It's about the writing style. I think you've got a good writing style, definitely very unique. I read a couple of stories twice just to try and get my head around them. You know, there's a lot in there.
What parts? Because I noticed that in your review, which I was really trying not to like look at reviews. And not that there's many out there for this one at the moment, but yeah, got a kind of strange relationship with it at the moment because it's almost like I kind of just feel like moving on to something else, as you know, just get distracted with the next project that's going to take up 6 months and then move on to whatever. But Tribute will be released as a standalone. I might as well mention this now because I don't know, I like that story, and I'm kind of aiming to write a few novellas because I think there's an art to it really, and I'm also slightly aware, or at least conscious of the fact that people don't really have attention spans anymore. So
Yeah.
I kind of figure the best bet is to just write short novels or novellas and just like try and really, I suppose I do have a love for them as well. Like the Metamorphosis by Kafka, I think is, yeah, a magnum opus, but it's kind of like how you can say so much with as little as possible, and I think that's I suppose that's a target of mine. Not saying I ever get there, but yeah. And I'm glad you say that I'm more of a social commentator, because yeah, I've always thought that. Even with Heather, I thought it was more to do with that, and it's kind of satirical. It's a bit of a weird mix in general, I suppose, but overall, I think there are observations of what's going on in society and things like that, especially when it comes to technology, but hopefully other things as well. I don't know.
You're certainly very finely tuned in to kind of social ethos, I've noticed. I mean, how do you categorize your books? When you upload them to Amazon, for example, what categories do you choose? Because I was thinking about this. It's not horror, it's not science fiction. You could call it transgressive, but
Yeah,
that's
I don't
not
have
a
that
category.
category.
No, I've never seen it. No.
I know. I'm actually still surprised that they don't have it on there because it's clearly a genre, but a lot of people haven't heard of it, and it isn't a good keyword, for instance, because no one fucking searches it. So it's like, yeah, I mean, but I'd still say it's probably transgressive. You know, it features characters that are anti-heroes, you know, who get to pretty funky shit. I suppose I don't include drugs too often, but I mean, Fubar is all about alcoholism and does have drugs in it as well. But yeah, and I'm just thinking of like the definition of transgressive fiction. For Left Unread, I have gone with horror. I think possibly that's a mistake, but I think in general there is a horror that comes from like reading it. It's not horror in the text, but I think when you step back and you think of, you know, what the characters do in Aftertaste and FaceTime, A Source, even Tribute to a certain extent, but Chameleon as well. Like to me, like they give you that kind of like, oh, I feel a bit violated feeling. And to me, I suppose in a traditional sense, that is quite horrific. But in terms of genre, it's really hard. I suppose it's transgressive. Horror. Yeah, transgressive horror like would be a good one. Dark fiction, I see quite a bit come up, but it's a bit what? It's not very specific, is it? There could be anything.
Dark fiction, yeah, that's a bit broad.
Yeah.
Do you read a lot of Chuck Palahniuk? He's known as transgressive.
I've read his stuff. I've read Haunted, which I think you reviewed.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Oh, is it? I think as a collection,
stories in there. Well, it's a collection of short stories. The best one is The Nightmare Box, in my opinion. It's one of the best horror stories I've ever read. It's, you know, I don't know whether you can remember it. It's about the wind-up box that they find in a charity shop. I think so. And it ends up in this art gallery, and a woman takes her daughter, and it's explained that the box has got this eyepiece, and you put your eye to it, and if it stops ticking, you press a button, and only you see what's in the box. And this girl looks at it, and she's just never the same again. It's really scary, and it's the kind of thing you wouldn't expect Chuck Palahniuk to write, because he's more of a social commentator as well. You know, a bit kind of like you are. I don't associate him with horror, but that's a really scary story. And then you've got Guts as well. That's story number one,
Guts.
but that's more of a gross story, right?
Yeah,
But
that's all about the wax cylinder in the
wax cylinder in the car, power up nuts, and the swimming pool suction pump.
I loved that story when I first read it. I still do, probably. And yeah, there's another one, isn't there, about the is it like a child sex doll or something? It's something. It's really fucked.
It's nasty. It's a blow up doll in a workplace in an office, and everybody takes it out,
taking it out and fucking it basically, and bringing it back. But I'm sure I remember reading that and thinking, Jesus, this is pretty out there. But
this book, I've read a few of his stuff that I haven't liked. I didn't like Adjustment Day. I didn't like The Invention of Sound. I've only liked about 50% of his books that I've read. Damned is quite good. And he wrote a book called Snuff, which is all about a woman called Annabelle Chong from the 1990s. She was from Singapore, but she worked as a porn star in America. And she was the first woman to have sex with, it was either 100 men or 1,000 men in one day. And she did it back in the 90s. I think that happens every week now.
Yeah. I was just going to say, that's like Bonnie Blue, isn't it?
She was the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are. I mean, that's the funnier thing is, it's like I was thinking this not too long ago, but with stuff like Aftertaste or whatever, or even if like that stunt from Lily Phillips where she's like sleeping with 100 dudes in a day, and there's this whole documentary on it. If you ever watch that documentary, it's like you kind of come out of it thinking, like, what time am I living in? Like, what is this? But also, like, if you told that premise and to a publisher, for instance, and was just like, yeah, I've got this story about this OnlyFans girl, and she's going to have sex with 100 guys in a day, before they actually happened, I'm sure a publisher would be like, it's not very realistic, is it? I mean, how's she going to do that? It's just like, I don't know what to really make of it all. I'm kind of endlessly fascinated, but at the same time, I'm still kind of left a bit befuddled, to say the least, and disturbed.
Life has overtaken fiction in many arenas, many different arenas. Yeah, politics.
It's like, how do you continue to make your own stuff in any way shocking when this is like the norm now? It's just like, it's almost like we're at the end times. Maybe we are, because I'm not sure how much further it can go, to be honest. But I suppose when it comes to storytelling, though, I mean, I did find some weird similarities in like tribute with really old fairy tale kind of stuff. Like, I thought a lot, and I think a lot of it, and Pygmalion, I think there's definitely an influence of this male gaze projecting this ideal of perfection, and it's normally at either a statue or an alien or some sort of basically an image in his head kind of thing. And I think that kind of story goes back about 2,000 years since Greek times or something like that. So right. I don't think stories really change that much. It's just the lens through which they are told kind of gets an update, basically, and you can kind of play around with that and have some fun. Because I even thought in tribute actually as well, which I thought was quite a fun thing, and I only realised it halfway through. But when the kid is trying to deal in the video and he takes it, I think his magical thinking in that moment is very Jack and the Beanstalk. He's selling him magic beans, basically. Yeah. When I think about it, I think because all the fantasies and things in his head are the things that make it exciting, you know.
I read Hansel and Gretel a few months ago, and that was pretty hard going. I mean, when was that written? A good few hundred years ago.
think so.
It's about a stepmother who basically wants to get rid of the children who they're not her children, so she thinks, fuck it, let's just take them to the woods and get rid of them.
Yeah.
And then they end up meeting some old hag who tries to cook them and eat them. You got cannibalism. You've got
Yeah.
got an evil step parent and stuff.
I actually
So-
performed in a stage thing when I first went to drama school, and I was
Oh right,
the dad.
so
That one.
you were the dad, right?
I was the dad. I was the simping wimp of a dad, basically, who like obeys anything the wife says because it's like the
He's
stepmother.
the only good character in the story, right? You could say.
You could say
He's the
that, I suppose.
character.
But he still like dumps his kids in the forest and then
Yeah.
just like, all right, this is your life now. See you later. But yeah, a lot of those old school fairy tales are pretty grim. There's a lot of them have incest, and I've often heard Red Riding Hood is more about rape than it is about anything else, and it's kind of like the warning of the wolf, and because it's Red Riding Hood, it's referring to her womanhood kind of thing, and
Right.
she's first becoming a woman because it's like in essence blood kind of thing. So it's and then the wolf is getting her scent because of that, and all these kind of metaphors for it and stuff. So
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I bet it's true. I bet it's true. So are these stories based on real things, or do you just completely dream them up? Or is it a
it's
mix?
a bit of both, to be honest. I usually like, obviously being older than the Zoomer generation, I'm usually taking maybe some memories that I've got of things that might have occurred in the past, but then I'm kind of like uploading it to current times. And then whether it's something I've read in some sort of sociology book or whatever, I'm kind of combining these little things and using those as plot points or dynamics within the tales to kind of knit them together. So yeah, it's all a bit of a mix, I would say. I mean, some of them are in, I mean, I have got a video if anyone's interested on my channel about it, which I'll probably leave up for a while. And that goes into a bit more detail about each story. So some of them
The poet story seemed like it might have been based on true events, or was that completely, was that made up as well?
It's made up, yeah, but it's inspired by certain activities, shall we say? But again, it's all projection, so it's all from my own lowly perspective. So I'm just kind of like, but the kind of point with that story was also like to make a commentary on how we extrapolate meaning from text so much, but we also put our own intonation and our own mood can control what it looks like. So context is completely taken out of the fucking window, and you're constantly kind of you're basically interpreting it the only way that you know how to, but you're getting no other information other than what the text is on the screen. And that's a very dangerous thing, because it's very easy to misconstrue, because you can't get any hint of like inflection. Are they being slightly sarcastic, playful, derogatory? Like, you just don't know. And so with that, it's all about two people who are totally separate from each other, but they're trying to communicate using way too many different formats as the kind of tale goes on. It's like a complete, that one was very challenging to say the least, because it was
It's about paranoia, right? If I interpreted that story correctly, it's kind of a story about paranoia. She's a female poet on Instagram. A hot man starts liking her stuff. He then invites her onto his podcast, or she submits a short story to his podcast, right?
Mm.
And then she immediately regrets it because it's like an unflattering story. He reads it. His fan base takes the piss, but he doesn't, and she kind of thinks he's taking the piss, but really he's not. I thought it was about paranoia.
It's a bit of that.
See, it seems to me. It seemed like a paranoia story to me. But,
well, you hit it on the head there. Yeah, he doesn't say anything bad about it. In fact, I think he's quite complimentary to it.
Yeah.
And yet,
Yeah.
because of the reaction, it's by association. He's the problem and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, so it's kind of paranoia to the point of, well, mental delusion, basically, because it's, yeah, a capitulation of her mindset, but how it kind of just goes on a repeat. So by the end, it's just like, it's almost as if nothing's happened. It's just like, it's similar to like in a sitcom, I guess. Like when once you reach the end, it's as if nothing had really occurred, because you can just carry on from the same starting point, essentially. And I think there's a tendency for people to do that nowadays, because it's so easy just to say block, ghost, delete. You can basically create your own demented little island inside your pocket, which is what I think all of us are doing, basically.
And you get your own kind of content recommended to you on YouTube and Facebook, so you're in a little bubble. You're in a bubble all the time. But apparently, if you just read a text message, you're losing about 90% of the meaning. I think
is it that much? That high? 90%.
I think it's that high because body language and facial expressions and intonation stuff, it all adds up. I think it's about 90%.
Yeah, I know you exchange a lot of information when you're in face-to-face contact, just on a biological level, where before you even say anything. So you're kind of picking up on scent, and like, obviously it's unconscious, but yeah, there's a lot you're not getting. So I guess what we do to compensate for that is project, because you kind of have to try and find meaning, because we're just meaning junkies, aren't we, really? That's all we ever look for. It's like, what's the significance of this? Especially as writers, we're just like doomed to fall down these avalanches of just building things up and well, maybe muddying the waters to make them seem deep. And I think, yeah, that poet's story is very sarcastic as well. So the whole thing is a massive spoof, basically, because it's just ridiculous in every way, shape, or form. I was kind of thinking, like, I'm not sure if this is any good, to be honest. It's just like, yeah, just total mad. I did quite like the poetry, though, ironically, even though it's massively taking the piss. I just think it's quite fun. Sometimes when you don't care about what you're writing, you actually come up with some of the best stuff, because you're not being conscious about it or egotistical. It's just more like, oh, I'm just going to put some words together and see what happens, basically.
The best way to do it, though. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you must have had some formatting problems putting this together then. What kind of nightmares? What kind of nightmares with that?
Yeah, I mean, I had issues with InDesign just to begin with. I don't know why. Maybe it's my Mac or something, but I could only get it to work if I switched off the Wi-Fi, flicked it back on. And even then, it was acting a little bit weird at times. But yeah, I don't know why I did this to myself with the formatting. I suppose it just shaped out that way. I wanted it to be a commentary on social media in a big way. And so I just started adding little things here and there to try and make that. I mean, it's not complete. I'd still think it's got the traditional book format, but yeah, just in a kind of like, if AI could think, maybe it would come up with something like this in a sense. So it's like, showing the definitions, or like my perception of the definitions or understanding of them, was just kind of a bit of fun. I think that's just kind of taking the piss out of myself, because it's like loads of, if I'm going through the proofing or whatever, I might look at a word and then just think, one, is that spelt correctly? But two, am I using it meaning wise correctly? So I end up fucking Googling meaning like all the time of all these words. And then I was just thinking, like, oh, I do this a lot. And I even quite like seeing the definition of stuff. So I just thought, in a nerdy way, I'll just label each title page with the bit of this and just have a bit of fun.
It was quite good. It worked. Yeah. It was pretty good. I also noticed a lot of these stories have been in magazines. Did you? It's quite hard to get your stuff into magazines. So, did you have any? How did you manage that? Because
I
think
didn't.
you've been published in about 5 different magazines, haven't you?
Yeah, I think this. I mean, to be honest, it was when I was a bit more popular. That was about it. I was. It was. I think most of them. It was after Heather, and then obviously with Heather and doing the podcast and mingling with a bunch of different people, I was just requested to do it, which was nice, you know, because I have pursued publication before when I was first starting, and rightfully I was pushed back quite a bit because I think my early stuff is shit, to be honest. But I haven't really pursued actual publication for quite a long time, to be honest. But yeah, I don't think anyone who printed it will be reading this, let's say. I mean, maybe one or two, but yeah. So I mean, a lot of it's Anxiety Press, Outcast Press.
Yeah.
Filthy Loot was another one, and another one's by, what's her name? Nada Aria, I think her name is. So I think those are the main publishers of it, and yeah, they're just in anthologies and stuff like that. So I always wanted to put it in my own collection, and 4 years later I've done it. So it's just kind of like played around with a few of them. I haven't actually updated any. I changed the title of one, and with the others I still felt that they were pretty relevant in terms of the social media theme, let's say.
Oh, it's a very, very relevant book. Yeah, that's undeniable. Yeah, it's definitely a sign of the times, or a product of the times.
Is there any? All right, tickle my ego a bit. Well, actually, I'm just intrigued. Is there any story that kind of stayed with you?
Tribute was my favourite, and the Instagram poet story stuck with me.
Huh. I'm glad.
I read the source story a couple of times because that's very short. That seems like a revenge story as well, about revenge involving a hot pepper put somewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, but I think Tribute's my favourite one. I think that's my favourite one. The last story as well, Chameleon. I quite enjoyed that. They certainly go well together. They're all they've all got the same themes.
I'm glad to hear that, because I was a bit like, I think whenever you're putting a collection together, you're kind of mostly concerned with, like, do these all link? Because you know your own writing style is still going to kind of come out. But at the same time, I suppose with that one, I think the one that stands out the most from them is probably I'm _years old and I've never had a girlfriend, because I think that one is that's probably the anomaly of the piece, because it's just a weird, it's not even a story, I wouldn't say that much. It's more of a ramblings of some lonely dude, basically.
Yeah, it's like ramblings. It's the story. The storyline is very simple, but the beauty is in the insights, his musings. But yeah, they definitely go well together. Yeah, I think they all belong in the same collection for sure. For sure.
That's good.
So so now you're just faced with the hard part. Now you've got to sell it.
Any tips?
Well, my tip was to focus on email, but you've got to play it right. Email. You've got the Written Word Media is a certain company, and they've got loads of email lists, and you can pay to go on their list and stuff. My advice is to put it on there, but make sure it's free for a certain amount of time, or only 99 pence for a certain amount of time. Because I once paid some money, not that much, only about 40 quid, to go on one of their lists. And I was thinking, right, I'm going to sell at least 50 copies or so, but I've sold about 3 copies, and I actually sent them a message saying, look, what happened? And they said it didn't sell because your book wasn't on a limited time offer. It was on a fixed price. It was very cheap. It was only about £1.50, but it was fixed. That was a regular price. And the people who sign up for these email lists, tend to be bargain hunters. They want freeloaders or bargain hunters, put it politely, you know. And even if a book is about £1 or 99 pence, unless it's a limited time offer, they'll just ignore it, right? So,
all right, okay.
Focus on email, but just put it on offer for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I used Fiverr back in the day. I might see if because there was a couple of sellers on there who would promote it, and usually that was when it was on an offer. So when you've got it on, like, was it 5-day giveaway on Amazon? Because at the moment I've got it on unlimited, but I think the landscape has definitely changed quite a lot. I mean, it has been a number of years since I've tried to really push something, so I'm even tinkering with the idea of doing ads again, but I kind of think with that I need the reviews in first before I start trying to sell it. But I had a bit of success with my first collection doing that. But I just fear nowadays that the market is so saturated or oversaturated that, who knows how much you'd be paying, you know, per click these days. You probably end up paying more than you'll get in profit for selling it, to be honest, especially if you have a name like Stephen King or something attached to your book. It'd be like, it costs you $50 just to get the click. But I don't know. I suppose I'm going to come back to streaming. I suppose that's something. I'm sure there's a litany of people out there who will be thrilled to hear this. And probably, and my website, I suppose. G.C.McKay.com. I'm still giving away the book. It's just now you have to get it through Book Sirens. So there's links on there where you do have to sign up to review it, basically. That doesn't mean you're completely obliged to do it, but you will, you know, that's the idea, is to just get reviews. But to be honest, I mean, getting those reviews is just hard. I don't know any other way to describe it, to be honest. If you are an author, it's just fucking hard. You know, you're better off with.
It sure is. I think the recommended amount is 15 before you start advertising it, and that getting 15 reviews is quite tricky. You know, it's quite a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it bloody is, especially on Amazon. And there's a difference between ratings and reviews as well. Sometimes you see a book and you think, oh, bloody hell, it's got like 500 reviews, but it's not. It's just 500 star ratings. There's a difference between that and somebody actually writing a review. I think you need 15 written reviews before you should start advertising it. But I hate Amazon ads and Facebook ads. I thought about paying somebody else to do it for me, but that eats into the profit, of course. You have to pay them about 50 quid a month or so to do it. I did it a few years ago. There was this man in America. I was paying him about 50 quid a month to do my Amazon ads. I was selling copies, but at the end, after 1 year, I looked at my bank statements and all that. Turned out I'd lost about £1,000. I didn't know it at the time. I just lost track of it. So £1,000 just gone, you know.
So, I mean, to be honest, I suppose it depends on your perspective of it, because it does sound like you're £1,000 in, but if you look at it from a business, £1,000 is nothing. You know, it's like, it's not a lot. Like, and that's the problem as a self-published author. When you're trying to get reviews or you want to just push your book out, it's coming out of your pocket, basically. You're not going to be able to. And then, you know, and if you think about these other books, this one I mentioned earlier, Rejection, I think that's got like 500 reviews already, but it's got, you know, it's published by, I think, HarperCollins, I can't remember, but it's a big publisher. And obviously they suggest that you have 3 months of marketing before you even release the book. So that's like something that I can't afford to wait. I don't want to wait around 3 months just sending emails out and all that kind of stuff. But my plan with this book is to try to keep the persistence up, you know, a bit like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank when he keeps writing letters to the I don't know, local council to get more funding for the prison, and eventually he gets it. So I'm kind of thinking I need to just have this, you know, blind resilience where I'm just basically just keep trying to push it. But after a while, you've got to just let it go and move on. I think, like, people, you know, occasionally people are still reading Heather, which is nice, but I look at it now and it's like, what, 4 years old, just over 4 years old. So it's like, it's quite, you know, I don't even think about it, you know, as a piece. So it's a bit, but I still need to sell it. So it's like, yeah.
Well, that's one thing we've got though as self-publishers. I mean, back in the day, if you managed to get published by a company, they printed out loads of books, put them in a bookstore, and then you had 1 month to prove yourself. If they sold, great, more paperbacks, and you'd start selling them. But if everybody just ignored it and they didn't sell any copies in that first month, that was your chance.
Yeah.
And that was it, you know.
Just end up on a pallet in some warehouse, basically.
Yeah. But as self-publishers, we can promote our books year after year. We don't have to forget about them like that.
No.
So
and you do have other options, like with Tribute. I want to make an audiobook, which I've just started doing it, but I'm going to take my time with it and try and enjoy it.
Yeah.
The only thing that's a bit weird is because I'm like nearly triple the age of the character, but I kind of figured that doesn't really matter. You've got to use your imagination a bit, you know, because it's like, I think the language enough is, yeah, sells him as a teenager. So, and I don't want to share the royalties, so I'm kind of like, might as well put this drama degree to the fucking work again. And yeah, there are better profit margins in it as well, so that's something to always consider. It's just adding to the workload of doing it when you've already spent so much time writing it and, you know, revising it, proofing it, you know. So it's like, it's a lot.
Well, this is the big mistake, though. We spend years labouring over our stories, and then by the time it's done, you think, right, fucking hell, I'm just going to sit back. I'm knackered. I'm exhausted. But it's the worst thing to do. You shouldn't do that. You should keep pushing it.
You have to keep pushing. Yeah, you have to find a reserve of energy that you've already spent in your 5th draft or whatever. And yeah, so I'm hoping I'm going to try and make it a bit fun. You know, I might make I'm working on a reel at the moment just to try and advertise the book. Also, if I bring back the streams, I'll probably just be mentioning it, you know, where you can get a copy. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose just try and write the next thing in the background.
And have you got more in the pipeline? Have you got
more?
I've
got, like, I suppose the good thing about not releasing anything for a while is you've kind of got a lot of things that you're sitting on. So I'm kind of like balancing it out at the moment, thinking like, oh, I could look at this, could look at that. I'm not set on what is going to be the next one just yet, but I've probably got about 5 different projects that are kind of doing nothing on my computer at the moment. So some of them are half finished, some of them are, you know, it'd be interesting to go back to it because I quite like that stage of things when you've kind of forgotten what you wrote, and then you can kind of see like, oh yeah, this has some legs, it's got something. Maybe if I had this, or sometimes I find as well, like a storyline or a plot point can kind of just come to you from reading it because you've got a fresher perspective on it. So
yeah, I think it's a good tactic. I like to leave stories alone for at least a month or more. You kind of come back at it with fresh eyes. It's like painting. I don't know if you've done any painting, but if you do a painting, after you look at a painting, any image, your eyes get tired and you miss things. You put it away, go to sleep, and then look at it again the next day, or better still, in a couple of weeks. You just immediately see what it needs, you know, and it's the same with a story.
Yeah, I've heard it's because really, in a way, even though you put the story down or away in the drawer or whatever, subconsciously it's still kind of, you know, turning the cogs or turning the wheel.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so you are kind of still working on it, but you're kind of taking in other elements of the world to then bring to your palette, I suppose, and then you can actually, when you do re-look at it, you can touch it up or change it a bit, and that's kind of where the fun of it is. I do find the more I'm writing, the less instances of actual fun is there, but there's that moment that's quite fun, and then I usually find the final edit to be quite fun, because it's like you've got that excitement of like, oh, okay, this is nearly done now, and now I can actually play a little bit because all of the components are there. I can actually enjoy this now. But really, first drafts and stuff like that I find to be like work. Really, it's a slog. It's just, you know, getting from A to B, and you look at it and you think, okay, I want to add this, but if I do that, it's going to fuck up that plot point, because then the information changes or whatever. So you're constantly like re-sculpting it or re-chiseling at it to
It's, you should say that. It's funny you should say that, because quite often I've thought the reverse. So sometimes the first draft for me is the most enjoyable, but the later drafts become torturous. But I think it's because I've got OCD. But with the first draft, I'm just writing freely. I'm not worried about typos or grammar mistakes. I'm just getting the story down. Draft number 2, I'm being a bit more precise. But with the last draft, I want to get rid of all typos, and I want every sentence to be correct. I've often described the process the opposite way, but I know what you mean.
no, yeah, I mean, everyone has their own flow with it.
Yeah.
I suppose for me, I think the reason I find the first draft a slog is because I usually have a decent idea of, you know, beginning, middle, end, and what's going to be in it. But then it's just like, okay, so the idea's there. Now I've just got to write it, and it's like, you know, and then it's finding the tone, finding the theme, finding like what you're kind of, trying to convey, how you're conveying it, like all of that kind of stuff. I definitely lean more towards first person, but that's something I think will change as I go on, because I kind of feel like once you have a bit more confidence in your writing ability, I think then you feel like you can command it a little bit more to, grab attention through the way you play around with it. So there was a few techniques in the collection that I was actually kind of like, okay, yeah, that's quite nice. I've used a slightly different one there where I've set up the thing, and then when it ends on that chapter, it kind of brings it back, but only in a different chapter. So it kind of starts to intertwine a little bit. Tricky to edit though. I have to admit, when you're fucking around with timelines and stuff, that can be a bit of an art bark. But yeah, overall it's just a grind. And the most fucking boring part is the marketing. I'm not a fan, to be honest. I think it's, and really, you know, traditional way, you wouldn't have anything to do with this, but because we've chosen this path, you're kind of left to do it. And it's I like most of it. I like doing the formatting, really, because I'm a control freak. So I'm just like, I get to make it look like how I want it to look. Same with the covers and things like that. But when it comes to actually, you know, I suppose the social networking side, I'm just like, I'm tired. I need a fucking AI assistant to do all this shit for me, basically, which I am kind of half looking into, but they're not that advanced. So
I listened to a podcast recently, and I heard somebody say that there's literally never been a better time to be a writer. So, I mean,
are they a writer?
if you're a pre-internet writer, I think you were more limited. You had your only hope was to attract the attention of a company. So you had less opportunity, but now post-internet, you can get your stuff out there. But as you mentioned earlier, everything is just so oversaturated. You just get lost. Your stuff gets lost in the big tidal wave of ebooks that get uploaded every single day.
Yeah.
So, but I do agree that it's probably better to be a writer post-internet. Still, even with all the competition, I think we've still got more options available to us. But
true.
Do you have an email list? Well, that's the main thing. That's the main.
I have had it before. I don't know whether it actually. Well, maybe the emails I sent might have been left unread. To be honest, I never really figured out whether they were getting, much attention or anything like that. But I am kind of like slowly building something up. Mainly just because, if you download the book, you have to put your email. So I'm kind of just putting a list with that. And unfortunately, you can't get access to stuff like your YouTube followers. You can't, as you probably know already. But but I suppose, my main hope hasn't really changed that much. It's like keep pushing the YouTube, keep writing, and you never know. One day, somebody might actually want to do something kind of cool with it. I don't know, but so far hasn't really gone that way. But then I do think like a lot of books, they sit on the shelf for a long time before someone might pick them up and make a movie out of it or whatever. So I just think, well, if that's going to happen, it will happen. Probably after I'm fucking dead, but
Well, they've just made a film called The Monkey, which is based on a Stephen King short story from bloody 1980.
Oh, really?
Cinema. Yeah, it's an okay film. It's more of a black comedy than a horror. And afterwards, I read the Stephen King story. I think the story's better, to be honest. And apparently,
I watched a cracker actually that was based on a short story. The Rule of Jenny Penn, I think it was called. Let me just look it up. Yeah, The Rule of Jenny Penn, and it's got Geoffrey Rush and what was the other guy? I've got to find his name because he was very good in it. He was super creepy. Let me just see if I can find. John Lithgow. Yeah, those are the two main guys. So Geoffrey Rush is a judge, and he's giving a verdict at the beginning, and he starts condemning this woman. But then he suddenly has a stroke. Next thing he knows, he's waking up inside a retirement home, kind of thing, and he's he's in a wheelchair and all this kind of stuff. So he's having to like try and recuperate before he can leave. But there's this other guy there who's been there for yonks, and he's basically just torturing everyone in there. And he's especially focused on this other guy who's a roommate of Geoffrey Rush, and I think he was an ex-rugby player or something like that. And this guy, and he's got this like doll thing that he has on his hand all the time, and he's just constantly got these like eyes, everything about it, and it's proper disturbing because it just like you're watching it thinking like you just feel, I don't know, tense all the time. And it's not perfect, but it's a very good watch. It's I definitely, and I've actually had The Monkey on my radar as well because I've had that saved for a bit of movie watching, which I haven't really been doing of late, but I'll check that out as well.
Well, have you seen The Substance with Demi Moore?
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
I enjoyed it quite a lot, but mainly because it reminded me of those kind of body horror flicks like The Fly, because I thought it was very similar to that. And you just got this, and I thought it was too long I thought that was because the ending. It just I enjoyed the ending, but I did think it took a bit long to get here. And once you're there, you're in it for about 15-20 minutes, whilst it's just complete chaos. Little bit overhyped, but overall I thought it was pretty decent. Yeah, it was not bad. Probably
I really enjoyed it. Yeah. The ending actually made me laugh out loud in the cinema. I don't usually do that. The bit where she explodes and there's all blood and pus spraying over the audience.
I thought it was hilarious because it was so ridiculous, and it was just like, and I kind of like it when a film goes to that kind of, it almost implodes in on itself kind of thing. I enjoyed Smile too as well, actually. If you've seen Smile, I recommend the sequel.
I've got a lot of blind spots when it comes to films.
I recommend they're a good couple of horrors, I would say, and the performance of the woman in Smile 2 is very good, very good. Well, yeah, the substance was good. It was
yeah, it's good. The bit at the end as well, where she slivers over the Hollywood star. She's a bit of like slime. It's great. It's just like saying, look, you might be a Hollywood celebrity, but someday you're going to be brown bread. And about it. So don't get too up your own arse. Quite a good message. I liked it. I thought it was a good film. I recently watched Fatal Attraction from 1987 with Michael Douglas. That's quite scary. That's quite a scary film. It's horror as well. It doesn't look like horror. It looks more like a thriller. But if you listen to the sound,
Bunny Boiler one.
Huh?
Is that the Bunny Boiler kind of one?
Yeah. She puts the rabbit.
So he has an affair, and then she gets completely obsessed with him.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. It's a scary film, and the soundtrack is scary as well. I sometimes listen to movie soundtracks when I write, and most of them are horror, and none of them really scare me. But that one actually makes me jump. It's even the soundtrack of that film. Michael Douglas was a good actor, especially.
Is that like classical music then?
It's like a mix of gentle classical music, but all of a sudden you've got these fucking tense horror moments as well.
Yeah, I used to listen to probably going to get his name right. I think it's Shostakovich, and he's a Russian composer, and his stuff is like, it makes you feel like you're completely like schizophrenic or something. It's so like the intensity of it's like unrelenting at times. It does have a build up, but then when it gets into it, it's just you kind of feel like your neurons are be pinballing around kind of thing. And I remember writing quite a bit of foobar, like just in these weird trances, trying to like drill it out because I wanted to convey this kind of really, I don't know, descent into madness type of thing. So I listened to quite a bit of it for that one. With this collection, I was actually listening to like lo-fi kind of study music. There's a channel called Obsidian Soundfields, and it's not really music, to be honest. It's more ambience. So it's kind of like it's not like a drone, but it kind of similar, where it's just kind of like, it's supposed to just block out, other kind of distractions so you can keep focused on things. But I do think with each book, I seem to move on to be like, I decide what I'll be listening to while I'm writing. I don't always do it, but usually at the beginning, I've got some sort of background noise to try and.
Well, look, that's the bane of my existence. It really is. Where I live, I tell you what, peace and quiet is hard to find. I wear big headphones now. It's either construction noise or karaoke or a fucking dog barking. I used to write in coffee shops, but I've just completely abandoned that. It's just not possible. Everybody's on their phones watching TikTok and that. I
listen to coffee shop ambience to try and get in the atmosphere of it, and I found that to be more productive than I've sometimes done this, but I just find I've become too self-conscious of it as well. Like I just feel like I'm some tosser who thinks he's going to write the next big screenplay in a coffee shop or whatever. But I guess it just depends on your personality type a lot of the time. But to me, it's a solitudinal, venture at the best of times. I mean, you're basically on your own all the time, so you better get used to it.
Yeah. Well, some people would say that it's better to write outside in a coffee shop because you're like there's more bustle, more activity and stuff. And I think there is something to that. If you're just indoors on your own in a plain room, sometimes your mind goes blank. I think I've written some good scenes in coffee shops with alongside other people. Not when I have to listen to videos, but when I'm in the zone and listening to the right music, sometimes it's good to be outside. Depends on the writer, of course. Depends on what you're writing as well, I suppose. But yeah. So if you got offered the devil's deal, if a publisher sent you an email and said, look, we quite like your stuff. Imagine Penguin Publishing contacted you, said, right, yeah, we quite like Left on Red, but we'll only publish it if we can edit it, make it less offensive. We want to distort the message to our narrative, maybe make it a bit woke and stuff. Would you, yes or no? I mean, it would get your name out there and they'd pay you well, but your work would be devalued. The devil's deal. Would you say yes or no?
How much money are we talking?
Well, a lot, really. A big advance. Let's say.
I don't know. I mean, Ligotti got Conspiracy published, didn't he, by Penguin? But I don't know whether he got. I'm sure he got paid out of it, but I don't know how much he would have got. It's hard to say these days. Like back in the day, I think Stephen King got what, $250,000 for Carrie before it was fucking published. You know how much money that is in today's money? It's like $1 million. So it's no wonder the economy's done. When I look at like 80s movies and the books they were publishing and stuff, it's because they were pissing all the money away. And so now it's now got no value. And I don't hear often of people getting a good advance for a book, especially if they're not famous or if they don't have 100,000 Instagram followers already, that kind of thing. So it does happen, but it's rare. And you'll probably only get about, 100K, something like that. So maybe, we'll say they're offering me 100K, but they're going to wokeify my work.
They're going to wokeify your work.
This is a very bizarre scenario. They're going to, yeah. No, I'll tell them to fuck off. I wouldn't, I couldn't, I don't know. I'd feel like I'm sacrificing my own children for that, but I have to admit, I would deliberate because that kind of money would change my life. So it's like, what do I want? Personal integrity or my own house or whatever?
You could buy a house. Well, or you could say yes. You could say yes to the devil's deal, and then everybody would then know your name, and then
I could come up with
you could go back
new
to
alias.
self-publish. You could write your own stuff. Yeah, just say yes.
Would they know me by my face, or would I just be a name?
They'd know you by your face. Yes.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, if anyone looked at Left on Red and wanted to make it woke, aside from the delete button, I don't know what else they'd be changing, because I don't think anything in that collection can possibly be made, liberal or whatever. So
they could just keep the word definitions and that's it.
yeah, exactly. Even that is slightly questionable. I suppose if they were doing it like that show Adolescence, which I keep seeing, which I have seen as well, but the amount of like the media that's surrounding it is just absurd. And I'm just thinking, like, I've seen this show. I don't know whether you have. It's 4 episodes, and it's about a kid who kills a girl. And at the beginning, it's all shot in like, well, supposedly one take, but obviously it's like a style choice, which again I thought was a mistake. But yeah, it's kind of, but it's all being depicted as if it's like, oh, it's about the manosphere and it's about inceldom and all this kind of stuff, but it doesn't dive into anything in any particular depth. It kind of talks about the difficulty of parenting and all this kind of stuff as well, the difficulty of teaching and educating, all this kind of stuff, but it's all just surface level. And that's the only thing I could really say about it. But, and yet I'm hearing all these different things of like, oh, Parliament are going to introduce it and make it be shown at schools so little boys can learn about the horrors of misogyny and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And you just think, really? Like, most 13-year-old kids are too busy fucking on their PlayStation to be worrying about this kind of stuff. And at the same time, it's, yeah, if you haven't seen it, then
I've seen a clip. I've seen the promo clip, and somebody comes out with that line that 80% of women are only after 20% of men. I just saw that promotional clip.
Yeah,
it's got some red pill stuff in there.
Yeah, it has this whole thing about the fucking Matrix stuff and not obviously. The teacher thinks he's talking about the Matrix, and he's like, no, the manosphere, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like always making the kind of big bad wolf the manosphere. Like, he might as well be saying it like in a hushed voice, because it's like some sort of like, you know, Candyman demon or whatever. So it's just ridiculous. But it's not a bad show. It's not bad, but the things that get projected onto it are just like I just feel like it's all. If everyone's looking for attention because of, you know, attention-based economy, then people are just constantly labeling these things as being relevant to this movement, to that, all of this type of thing. But really, it's all fabrication a lot of the time. It's complete nonsense. Like, it's like, yeah, it might mention things like Andrew Tate or whatever, but if anything, it's just going to put more boys onto his content. So it's almost like conspiratorial propaganda, I kind of think at times, where it's just like it's forcing literal boys to watch it to try and learn the ills. But then I was watching it, I'd be thinking, well, the girl is a complete and utter bitch to this boy, and yet there's no, you know, chat about maybe respecting how to talk to someone or something like that. Like, it's, I don't know, it just, but again, I don't think the show was actually trying to make a massive statement on this stuff. It's just what the media has told it is, kind of thing. So it's, I don't know, it just all feels like a bit of a circus show, really, to me. It's like, it's almost, I suppose with politics the way that it is nowadays, it all becomes a bit of a farce, where I'm just like I might get a little bit of backlash from a couple of the stories in this one, but again, it's only ever going to be people, you know, making up shit to try and make it seem like it's about their problem or that issue, you know, kind of thing. But I just think, well, I like to think there's a bit more than just me having a go at you. You know, I don't spend hours behind a computer screen trying to just plot my revenge against someone. I mean, how mental would you be to do that?
It's all gone very cult-like. Everybody wants to belong to a cult. But I think that red pill stuff started off with The Rational Male. There's a book called The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi.
Yeah, he's a prat.
Right. So you've seen his videos?
Briefly, like I never really got along with his way of going on about things. He seemed to think he was the father of the red pill and all this kind of stuff. Maybe that's true. I don't know, to be honest. I doubt it, because I thought there was a woman who did a documentary called The Red Pill, and that was more focused on men's rights activists, I think. So that came first, the MRA, I believe. And then then it just, the internet got its hands on this kind of concept, and then so red pill content started to become a thing, and then black pill. But I mean, all of these things are just different words for what? Nihilism, pessimism,
Terminology.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is a lot of truth in it. I've watched his videos, that Rollo Tomasi. I think some of the stuff he says is true, but of course, being a human being, he's turned it into a cult. That's what human beings do. We turn things into cults and religions, right? So now he's got all of his followers, and if anybody questions his theories, they get called like a white knight or something like that.
Oh yeah.
You can compare that. You can compare the structure of this red pill cult to Christianity or Islam. It's got all the you're like an infidel if you don't completely subscribe to it, stuff like that. So I think with any kind of movement like that, it starts off with some really good insights that are true, but then people get carried away by it and they take it to the extreme.
Yeah, or if you say anything in favor of like feminism or something, then you're a white knight or you're a Captain Save-A-Ho or whatever. There's always some sort of like, pejorative to be labeled to kind of basically, I suppose the intent is to make you feel insecure and keep your mouth shut and think, oh yeah, you're still right, Rolo, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, and to be honest, I don't know. I never really. I think I've got the book, The Rational Male, on my phone. I've just never really been that bothered about reading it. I don't find him that articulate when I've seen him. He's all right. I don't have an issue with him per se, but having consumed quite a lot of that content, especially when I was writing Heather, I'm just sick to death of it. Most of them are fucking morons. So it's like, yeah, they might be able to pull a few statistics, but they don't really. I don't think they have the capability of comprehending it in a concise manner and a way that is, I suppose, with any content, it's like, what is its goal, or if the message is in the medium of what they're doing, I would be sure that, Tomasi and Fresh and Shit or whatever they're called, all of that lot, it's all about ego, isn't it? It's all about, they want to feel like they're right, and they want to, I mean, you will not find any group more obsessed with women than the Manosphere, and yet everything about it in it is supposedly against women. But I kind of look at a lot of them, and I think there's a Whatever podcast as well, where they basically prove that women are stupid by inviting the dumbest women on the planet to their podcast. And it's like, what point is this proving? It's like, yeah, we're aware there's quite a lot of dum-dums out there, but these women, you can tell they haven't got an IQ point between the two of them a lot of the time. And they're all OnlyFans girls. So basically, a lot of these guys are suffering from the Madonna whore complex. It's like they idolize 304s, basically. And they're pissed off that these women are all hussies, which it doesn't really make sense. It's like, well, you got what you wish for. What do you expect? They're not going to, be sitting behind a white picket fence, growing your babies and staying faithful and letting you go out and do whatever you want. So it's like, I don't know. It's just one perspective, isn't it, really? I do think there are some elements of it that are correct. And some of it is black pilling, let's say. But at the same time, I also wonder whether, because of the influence of that kind of content over the last 10 years, I think it's definitely changed the perspective of dating and whatnot in general. Because of why wouldn't it? When you've got like dating apps, there's going to be a kind of common denominator, with throughout it all. So, and the medium is the message, or the message is the medium. So if you have something like Tinder where you're literally just swiping left and right on people, you can't expect people to then treat each other well because they're already being treated like cattle before you even said hello. So it's a bit like, what do you expect's going to happen, you know? But
Right. Well, he's set himself up like a bishop. It's like Bishop Rollo sitting on his big throne. But he's just one example of many.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think that I don't think people do it intentionally, but it's almost as if guys create these movements or social clubs or membership things. It's almost like the end goal is always sleeping with young virgins at the end of it. They always seem to get caught out with, like, you know, like P. Diddy and Epstein and all of that. It's like the end goal is always just to get prepubescent teens onto some island somewhere where they're just the god. Basically, you look at like Jared Leto. Apparently, this dude, like, I honestly think this dude is like gone completely. But I think he created the band 30 Seconds to Mars, I think it's called, intentionally because he could then get to have sex with 15-year-old girls in like Germany somewhere. Because what he does is he puts on a gig, but you have to, when you're buying your ticket, you actually have to sign like a a non-disclosure agreement that what goes on in, like, I don't know, Hamburg will stay in Hamburg kind of thing, closed
what
off.
goes on in the room?
Yeah, and he's basically just inviting teenage girls. That's it. Like, there might be a few guys, but there's, like, generally speaking, you've just got 5,000 stupid teens in there, and he's up there on the stage topless, like, I am God kind of thing. And I just wonder, like, I don't think it's intentional when people get into it. Maybe I'm wrong or naive about that, but it seems to be the more that you're worshipped, let's say, the more you're going to think of yourself in that capacity, and then you're going to well, wrought evil upon the world, because what else is there to do, you know? It's like, it's almost like I kind of think that as well, in a way. Like, I just think we're all kind of susceptible to that, because if you're treated as if you're untouchable, you'll be like, okay, I'm going to do what I want then. I'm going to go around, I'm going to kill people. Yeah. It's like, because I think at the end of it, it's like what God does in the Old Testament. He's an absolute tyrant in that. Anything you do is like treachery and like all this kind of stuff. So it's just, you're going to be condemned. I'm going to, what is it? The Book of Job, where he's like, has a bet with Satan that he won't lose his faith. And then he's like, all right, I'll take that bet. And then he like takes away his children, puts a plague on him, makes him a leper, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, for the sake of what? Like, it's like, it's
well, he certainly comes across as a very needy God. A very very spiteful and needy. He doesn't seem very powerful at all, does he? If he's that bothered by what human beings do, he's not really a god, is he?
No, he's a bit of a bitch, to be honest.
Thank you for making it to the halfway point of this video. This is a quick message to let you know that I have a range of horror and sci-fi horror books available, and some of them are completely free. If you enjoy my videos, you might also enjoy my stories, so why not have a look? And if you'd like to receive fortnightly updates regarding the world of horror and weird literature, as well as book recommendations and prize giveaways, consider joining my mailing list. You'll even receive free horror audiobooks for doing so, written by me and narrated professionally. Finally, if you want to support my work, you can make a donation to my PayPal tip jar. All the links are below. Thank you. Now back to the video.
Dark times. Well, the whole social media thing shows no sign of slowing down. YouTube is still raging away. It's I've been staying off it for the last few days. I made the mistake of watching a certain video on YouTube the other day. It's like a news report of somebody who, like, a stabbing on the streets of some English town. And then since then, every time I go on YouTube, I'm getting these fucking horrible videos coming up of like burglaries and shootings and stabbings and everything. I just thought, fuck this, I'm not going on there. It just recommends videos on your past history, doesn't it? So, but I only use YouTube and email. I don't even use Facebook that much. I've never used Instagram, never used Snapchat or anything like that. It's pretty under control.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you only really need to limit yourself with it, really. I think I mainly use YouTube, and I don't even use it a lot at the moment, and Instagram, I suppose. And the other ones I'm only using to talk, to my girlfriend or whatever. So that's just like, there's not really any other reason to keep abreast with it all. It's just a bit too easy to lose yourself in them, and most of it's full of absolute trash. It's like the amount of slop tent that's out there is just unreal, which doesn't bode well for us as writers, to be honest.
No, it's more stuff to get lost in. Do you know about the fast food theory of social media? I don't know whether it's officially called this, but it's my name. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast a little while back, and he had someone on. They were talking about how everybody's hooked on social media, and the guest on that show, he said, back in the 1980s, the 80s and the 90s, fast food was a relatively new phenomenon, and you had everybody binging on it because it was new and nobody was really educated on it. And especially in America, you had all these massive fat people who ate like McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But after fast food had been around for about 3 decades, people started to get clued up on it, and you don't have that much of an obesity crisis nowadays. Nobody eats fast food 3 times a day anymore, even in America. And the theory is social media today is what fast food was back in the 80s. It's fairly new. People haven't been using it that long, and they're not that clued up about it. So in another 10 or 20 years' time, people might just walk away from it and just go on it now and again as a little treat, like people eat McDonald's. They might eat McDonald's once a week now as a treat because they know that it's bad news. So in another 10 years' time or so, people might just step back from it,
I would be slightly pessimistic about that, if I'm honest. Mainly not because I don't think people might clue themselves up, but it changes too much. Like we were talking about earlier, doing Amazon ads or something, like that to me feels like a lifetime ago. And it was only, 7 years ago, something like that, probably maybe a bit more. But I reckon the user face of it will have changed, the dynamics of it will have changed, and the competition would have definitely changed. So whilst it might still do the same thing in theory, I think the landscape we're in now has changed almost to the point where it's incomparable to what it once was, And I find that something like Telegram's only been around a few years, and yet it's still coming into its own, let's say. But with WhatsApp was around before, but now it's owned by Facebook and all this kind of thing. And I think Zuckerberg seems very set on making Meta happen in whatever capacity it might be. So whilst I don't think it will be anytime too soon, it's never that far away from changing quite a bit. And younger generations were used to it probably from the day they were born. So it's a bit like, I don't know whether they can imagine the world without a screen to stare at,
Right. But there are certain people who grew up with TV and they probably don't watch TV anymore. Although you could
Maybe.
just say that the TV's just moved to a different device, though, hasn't it? TV hasn't gone away; it's just on your phone instead of a TV set.
But with the fast food thing, I mean, now you've got like Uber Eats and all these delivery services. I think people are spending probably a lot of money on this kind of stuff, and there's a fast food kind of attitude toward a lot of things. I would say most people don't buy clothes thinking they're going to last. They know they're going to fall apart, but they buy it because it's cheap. So there's this whole, and I heard that a pair of Levi's in, say, I don't know, the 60s, 70s or whatever might cost you $100, but that same pair will still be $100 now, but they'll be complete crap by comparison. There's no artistry in the creation of them, but because it has to appeal to the consumer market, the price has to still resemble something that we deem to be valuable or a bargain, let's say. But because how much $100 was once worth compared to now is complete. I don't know what the statistic is, but I'm sure it's probably 500 nowadays, in back then. And due to that, companies are almost basically forced to use worse material to put it together just so they can price it at the same kind of level, even though that price has, fluctuated in terms of inflation or whatever.
Is what you're talking about here like planned obsolescence, or is it something different? Because planned obsolescence, you see it with TV sets and cars, right? They don't want a TV set to last too long, because then you won't buy another one.
Exactly.
And they want your car to last too long. Is that what you're talking about here with clothing?
Possibly,
different?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely crossover there, because what they want you to do is obviously keep buying the same pair of trousers or whatever, but more consistently. So you want to be coming back every year to buy another pair instead of having that pair last 10 years or something like that. I'm not quite sure where the crossover with social media would be, but I think the way it makes you think, or wants you to think, like you were saying before about, you watch one video about natural disasters and then all of a sudden apparently you're a complete aficionado of it and you can't get enough because your feed is just constantly bombarding you with the same types of content, which is really annoying when you're trying to write, because you might be looking up some weird shit, let's say, about, I don't know, furries or whatever, but then the algorithm's going to think that you're really into this kind of stuff, so it will keep showing it to you even months after you've stopped looking at it. And I find it very irritating. I kind of wish that I could say, this is a temporary search, don't fucking remember it, because I don't want to be harassed, basically. And yet, I don't know, you just get a lot of this. The fact that social media can do what it does with no legal repercussions is just fucking astounding to me. It really is. It's literally like they talk about your freedom and all this kind of stuff, but you're literally being propagandized to on a daily basis all of the time. And yet people don't bat an eye at it because we're so used to it. Everything's more like an advert these days. Oh, it's good exposure and all this kind of stuff, So I don't know. It's hard to know what our mental state is like, I would say, because I think we are, as Ballard might suggest, merging with the technology that we use.
So it's here to stay. We're stuck with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We love it. We can't get enough of this shit. Apparently, we can't sit in a room alone with our thoughts. We've got to have, things to scroll through and click.
Well, now, have you ever read the Unabomber manifesto?
I haven't. I'm ashamed to say I haven't, because
you know about the Unabomber though, right? You know about that, who he was and stuff. It's a fascinating story. But when he was, I've read his manifesto.
Kaczynski, isn't it? Is that his name? Kaczynski?
Kaczynski.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
he lived in America, but his parents were from Eastern Europe somewhere.
Yeah, didn't he make a cabin in the wilderness somewhere, and then he was I watched a documentary on him, and I think that's why I never read the book, because I kind of felt like I had all the info about him, because he kind of, yeah.
He was so clever. His mother put him through an IQ test when he was about 14 or 15, and he got 168, which is up there with Einstein. And he got he skipped loads of grades in school. He got sent to Harvard University at 16. He became a professor at 17 or 18, which broke some kind of record. He got a PhD in mathematics. I think maths was his thing. But when he was at uni, he volunteered for this project, and it was like an MK Ultra project. And they were basically trying to discover effective ways to break prisoners down during interrogation. He got abused in this university. They encouraged him to write down his life aspirations, and he thought that it was all harmless. And then a week later, he found himself in this room on the other side of a desk with this horrible bloke, and he was like mocking everything that he wrote. And he ended up just hating the whole entire system, so much so that he bought a cabin in the woods, like a little shed. He just wanted nothing to do with anything. He didn't even have running water or electricity. And then one day he used to go for walks in Montana it was, and then eventually he started making bombs. He started making these wooden bombs and sending them to universities. And he killed about 3 or 4 people. And he wrote a manifesto, and then he contacted newspapers and said, look, if you publish my manifesto in the New York Times, I'll stop sending bombs. But his manifesto is
it's one way.
It's very fascinating. That's one way. That's what we're doing wrong. But he points out in his manifesto that if you go to like Papua New Guinea and speak to certain tribesmen, if they're not hunting or cooking, they're quite content to just sit there staring into space for about 2 or 3 hours, just staring into the trees. They don't feel a need to read stuff and watch things constantly. Their minds don't need to be kind of entertained that much. So it's according to him, it's all part of the techno-industrial system, but it's not natural. Certain people who live in the jungle are quite happy to just sit there. They're not curious all the time like we are. They don't have to check feeds all the time.
The only thing I would contest to that, whilst I do agree on a primary level, but whenever it's something like, oh, it's unnatural, I don't really know what people mean by it, because everything you can make on this world is natural in a sense. I understand, obviously, it's not what we are born from, but I also think, well, what we're born into is pretty shit, isn't it? I mean, we have to find shelter, we have to defend ourselves, we have to eat, and things like that. So all we're really doing is trying to make best of a bad deal. And I kind of think, the technological advancements we've made are fucking amazing, really. When you step back and really, I mean, look at what we're doing now. It's pretty incredible that we can have a chat over a video call and actually, not have to do too much to do it. It's pretty awesome. I get what Kaczynski's getting at. I know I pretty much largely agree, but this whole thing about it not being natural, I don't agree there, because I just think, well, it's not like it's supernatural, is it? We haven't made it out of nothing. It's been created because we've used the components of this world somehow to piece together things that can.
Well, yeah. I mean, if a bird's nest is natural because a bird made it, a robot is natural because a human made it.
Exactly.
Sure. But if you read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, because he mentions that in the manifesto as well. In that book,
The Savage.
Well, in that book, they're given a drug called soma, aren't they? Because the conditions that they're born into are so bad, they need to be given drugs to make them happy.
Mm.
And he points out that that's actually happening now, where people get depressed because of the techno-industrial system. And then you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you antidepressants. But it's like a Brave New World thing that's already happening, according to him. He's got a lot to say about modern leftism, and this was all back in. He wrote it in the 80s, I think, the late 80s or the early 90s. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. He's dead now. He actually committed suicide about 2 years ago. He hung himself. He was about 70. He'd been in prison for about 30 years. Fascinating story. But I've
Was
seen
he?
that.
Did he have like a terminal illness, or did he just decide, you know what, I'm done?
I think he was depressed. I think he was depressed. He cut himself off from his family. His brother actually dobbed him in. He got arrested because his brother, when they published his manifesto in the New York Times, his brother read it and he recognized his brother's writing style. And so he contacted the FBI. He said, I think it's my brother. Yeah, his brother kind of grassed him up. So he got rid of his brother, and he also kind of disowned his mother as well.
Sounds relatable.
He spent about 30 years just banged up on his own. He wrote another 2 or 3 books as well, but they're not quite as readable.
Hmm.
You can get the Unabomber Manifesto online as a PDF for free. I did have a YouTube review of that up until about 6 months ago when it got banned. It got taken down because apparently they took it down because apparently it violated the anti-terrorism laws on YouTube. Yeah. And the only reason I've still got a copy of the video, I actually deleted my own copy of it. But luckily enough, one of my subscribers downloaded the video just before they. Yeah, so I've got it, but it's quite hazy because it's one of those files that's made for audio, not the visual. So it's quite grainy, but I've got a copy of it. Luckily, I don't know what to do with it. I can't put it back on YouTube.
Did you get a violation warning? As well.
I've got an email from them.
YouTube. They very easily will take down your stuff, but they don't punish you that much until they decide, right, you're out, kind of thing. But I mean, talk about proving his point in a kind of low key way of like, you best start believing in totalitarianism because you're in it, kind of thing. It's ridiculous. But yeah, again, I don't. Do you even know if a human watched it and thought he's violating the rules here? You can't be reviewing manifestos. You know, it's like, what grounds is it? It's not like you're there with a gun saying like, right, we need to rally up. And
well, at the end of the video, I actually criticised him. They sent me an email and it was quite threatening. They mentioned like anti-terrorism laws, and then I thought, oh fuck, yeah, the Unabomber. What was I thinking of, right? but then I said, I sent a message back saying, oh, can you look at it again or something? And a human being watched it again, and then they replied and said, oh, actually, we can see that it's not that bad now, because at the end, I kind of. The video wasn't me saying, yeah, the Unabomber's great and you should follow him and copy him. It was like a neutral review of what he was saying. But then they still took it down, but I don't think they gave me a warning or a black mark on my channel or anything like that. they've just taken it down. I don't have a website because I can't put it on there. I created a website a few years ago, but I spent shitloads of time building it on Wix, and then it's just Wix just tries to trick you. You know, they get you to commit to their site, and then they hit you with
they
these.
charge you 20 quid a month just to have the fucking website. It's a joke. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried that with me, so I just thought, fuck it, I just deleted it. So
I'm using Fourth Wall at the moment, and that's totally free. You just need to buy the domain name. That's good. That's how it should be. Yeah, so I recommend that if you ever fancy making a website again. It's a little bit limited in what you can do with it, but I kind of look at that as a blessing, to be honest, because I know I'd tinker around with it and want it to look this way and that, but I just wanted somewhere for my books to be and to sell signed copies. Wink, wink to anyone out there, signed copies on the website, but G.C.McKay.com. But yeah, Wix I did use as well. I was with them probably for quite a while, and then I thought, this is like, yeah, I'm paying more than I can sell in books for a month of this fucking service, and what am I really getting? It's just like,
that's right. That's right. I thought, instead of spending loads of time on a website that nobody knows about, I started building up my Amazon author page, worked on my A+ content and all that stuff, and I got all my blurbs.
Yeah, I need to do that, actually. I did it a bit. But yeah, again, it's just more bullshit, isn't it? All the time. And I'm just fucking tired. I'm just like, whatever. I'm hoping what these AI things might be able to do is actually do this stuff and just be like, that's when I'd use it as an assistant and just make it my PA, basically, and just be like, right, send out some emails to transgressive fiction reviewers or whatever, get this book known. But
what about when it comes to your actual writing? Would you use
I might if I was writing a story about AI, I might experiment with it and be like, right, what can it come up with? But anytime if I do that, it's like I'm always violating their terms, because it's very safe, let's say. It's not exactly going to help you writing things that are a bit anti-establishment. As soon as you have the word bitch in it, I think you're violating its terms. So it's a bit like, it's a bit woke in the way it's presenting itself, let's say. But
I don't like it. I mean, you could say that if you use spell check on Microsoft Word, you're kind of using AI to change your writing. But I mean,
that's nonsense.
It's spell check. That's okay. Putting your stuff on Grammarly to check the grammar, okay.
Yeah, even that I found to be a bit. Is it that great? It's like some of the suggestions. I mean, it might be better now. In fairness, I'm sure they have improved, but it's certainly not something I'd recommend for writers, to be honest. Maybe proofing, but then I look at like my own work and I think, how the hell would it proofread this? Because obviously some things are intentionally misspelled, or I'm using acronyms and stuff like that because it's, real or whatever, or supposedly, conveying a kind of reality. But I don't. And then you've got other things. Is it programmed to actually read it in British English, or is it American? That kind of thing.
If you go down that road, you reach a certain stage where it's not your story anymore. I think even if you use it for brainstorming, I would question whether that's actually your story.
Well, apparently the big five are already like chopping at the bits to get AI on board, because and to do everything, write everything, format it.
So what about authors?
Fuck
you mean they're just going to press a button and get a story?
Just going to shit them out and then see which one. So basically, it's almost like accelerationist philosophy behind it, where it will just probably take all of these dog shit like romance stories, let's say, put them all in the blender, shit out 1,000 of them, and see which one sticks, basically. And it will be churning out more content than there are people, I think, to even bother reading it. So to make something famous, you need to have, well, probably a person behind it. So they'll probably end up hiring one of these OnlyFans girls we were talking about before, and they'll put their face on it and be like, oh, this is my, you know, my novel about taking 100 sausages or whatever.
Right.
And they'll just, or something like that. They'll basically be, well, in a way, it would be the very definition of ghost written, because it's like not ever written by a person. It's literally written by.
In a way, it's not new, is it? Because I think Dan Brown and who's that bloke who wrote Jurassic Park as well?
Michael Crichton.
Yeah, Michael Crichton. I read one of his books recently, and it felt ghost written. There's no style there. I could tell that he had like 2 or 3 other people who wrote it for him. It's quite very flat and very.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to those types, like there's a few of them. I think they do those like master class workshops and things like that. They're all business people. They're not real writers, I don't think. They're not in it for the passion and for the art. They're in it because they can churn out a load of bollocks and then sell it at airports or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a shame we're at this point, but you know, maybe it's always been like this, really, when it comes to especially literary works and stuff like that. It has its moment, but in general, genres definitely rule the roost. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se. I just think the reverence of literature is a bit lacking now. And women have ruined literature, basically. No, it might not be their fault, and I think it's a good thing that they have an industry that they are dominant in, but the stuff they're churning out, it's dog shit, most of it.
What are you talking about?
Maybe I'm not its audience, but, you know, I just look at it and I just find it's very formulaic as well, and it's almost like it's so aware of what it's trying to depict, and it's just boring. Like, I find a lot of it very lacking. It's like, oh,
What genre are you talking about here? What stuff? What genre are you talking about here? Or women's?
Well, I suppose mostly literary. So, Ottessa Mossfe, probably, who I don't mind. I think she's a decent writer, but, well, I thought she was a lot better before I read more of her work. That other novel, My Dark Vanessa, I couldn't understand why that had hype. It's very mediocre, boring even, and people are, you know, comparing that to Lolita, and it's like, you shouldn't even be saying those in the same sentence to me. It's like, it's nowhere near, like. And I suppose you don't get auteurs, I suppose, because if I looked at Nabokov, I haven't read a lot of his work, but he was a very well-educated man, and his literary canon far exceeds the standard of today by a long, you know. But
Well, look, we've almost been going for 2 hours, so maybe I could finish by naming a few of my favourite novels and just seeing whether you've read them or whether you could if they're good or a load of shit. Dead Inside, Chandler Morrison. Have you ever read that?
No.
No, I recommend it.
Dead Inside.
Observatory Mansions by Edward Carey.
Nope.
No.
I haven't read it. Are these, what genre? Are these horrors?
Dead Inside is horror. It's about necrophilia. It's very almost like shock horror, splatterpunk.
Okay.
Very
Sounds like
very
a-
shock.
Sounds like something
Huh?
I would read. It sounds like something I'd read. Read the Necrophiliac. You read that?
Yeah, I've read that. I've read that. Gabrielle Bicop, I think
Yeah.
her name.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like a modern version of that.
Okay.
Entertaining. Observatory Mansions it's like weird fiction. It's about this weird mansion where loads of oddballs live. It was published in the year 2000. It's very eccentric. It's like an eccentric, weird novel. The Dice Man, Luke Reinhardt.
I've read that.
What did you think of that? Do you like that book?
A lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I think Chuck Palahniuk said it influenced Fight Club quite a bit, and you can definitely see that. I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. Or maybe I just felt like it was quite similar anyway. But yeah, especially because of, he starts it off himself, and then it becomes this cult as it goes along, and people are like abiding by it as if it's their god and all this type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, great read. I couldn't put it
that.
down.
I didn't realise Fight Club was based on that.
No, I think it just influenced it a little bit.
I see. So some of the chapters are one sentence long, aren't they? And I think the book actually ends mid-sentence, doesn't it? It just trails off.
Mm.
What do you think of American Psycho, the novel?
Loved it when I first read it, but that was a long time ago. I think I was about 22, 21, something like that. So obviously it appealed to my edgelord way of looking at the world. But having read it since then, it's not exactly the most enjoyable read. And I kind of think that across the board with Bret Easton Ellis. But I just think, although Glamorama was more fun, I would say, and Luna Park I quite enjoyed. I thought that was a good horror. I thought
Really, I didn't like that one.
Did you not? It took me a little while to get into it, but I actually quite enjoyed it in the end. I thought it was. I thought it had something going on in it that was a bit different to his other work. But American Psycho, it's tedious, and I think it's intentionally so. But obviously, it's weird because I think it's almost. It says something about your own sensibility because he's going on about his Gucci suits and fancy watches and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just there thinking, come on, get to the killing, get to the raping. I'm just, I want something exciting. I want some decapitation, And so I think it says something about your own appetite for, the carnal and all this kind of stuff. But in terms of it, it's very modern or postmodern, isn't it, really? So
I would describe that book as 90% torturous chapters about designer clothing and restaurant food, and 10% of the best horror murder scenes you will ever read in any book whatsoever. It's like a slog to get. You got to make it through all the designer clothing descriptions to get to the really good serial killer scenes.
Oh yeah,
and they are worth it. They are.
Sure. Yeah, the payoff is good, especially because some of the stuff he does in the novel is much more out there than what's in the film. Yeah, it's like he's killing kids and he's getting up to all sorts of shit when he's in his mad delirium, at least. But
it really is. And Cows, you
love it.
I love Cows.
Cows is actually I think it's actually very poetical when you read it. Like it's a tad repetitive at times, and I think the scatology is a bit heavy, or scatological elements are a little bit much, because I actually forgot about how graphic some of those scenes are. But it just almost becomes like a farce where he's like killing his mother and he's basically shoving fucking stuff down her throat and all this kind of stuff, and then he's attaching her mouth to his arsehole and or something like that. It's really fucking, it's almost like South Park kind of ridiculousness.
It's ridiculous, but it's also written well. So I don't. It'd be easy to lump that book in with some of these cheap extreme horror novels.
Oh, it's
But I
definitely
think
got more going on.
It's
Yeah.
more. It
Yeah.
is more than.
Yeah, I think it's saying something about the male psychology, actually, quite a bit, especially when it comes to like finding relevance and meaning and things like that. Because there's this kind of like, I love the bit where he's like basing everything off of the like what the TV people do and all this kind of stuff, and then he's like, but he will never get this happiness. It's actually very funny as well, I think, because it's just so. It's like caught between the real world and this kind of like, yeah, perverted side of it. It's got that underbelly, but that's, you know, on the surface kind of thing. And then, yeah, the talking cows and all this kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. I would love to see a movie of it, but at the same time, I would be a little bit apprehensive as to like what they're actually going to show in it, you know, because it would be, yeah, verging on snuff, I would say, if you were to film it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I don't think Hollywood would take that one on. Mind you, the substance is quite gory. So
yeah, that's true. That is true, and there's definitely a lot of body gore horror in Cows.
Yeah,
it's a little bit male dominated though, so I'm not sure they would make it these days, but maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Maybe he'd have to make it himself.
Probably.
Have you ever read Geek Love by Catherine Dunn?
Say it again.
Geek Love.
Geek Love. Oh, no. I've had it on my list, but I haven't read it. No.
Very good book. Very good book. It's like a carnival story, but it's all about freaks. It's about it's about a family, like a husband and wife who own their own carnival, like a circus. They're short of their freak show is Latin. So the woman gets pregnant, drinks certain chemicals, and gives birth to these deformed babies, right? And they become freaks for the circus. But it's a good book because it makes you question.
Does that have any antenatal commentary?
No, it's quite funny. It's quite a humorous book, but underneath the surface, it's got a strong message. Halfway through the book, this nurse comes to the circus, and she starts working for them because everybody gets jealous of these freaks and they want to be a freak themselves. And it turns into a big cult. You got all these followers following the circus, and there's a caravan with this nurse in there, and she amputates people's legs and arms because they want to become a freak. And so it's like this big freak cult. Very weird book. And
that sounds good. I'll put that on the list.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And The Wasp Factory. I think you've read this.
Yeah, that's great.
Wasp Factory is great. What about Exquisite Corpse?
I haven't read that. I
saw
saw this mentioned by someone the other day. It was on their list. I think because I'm kind of looking for people to look at Left on Red, so I'm kind of looking at YouTubers who read fucked up books, basically, and that was one on her list, I think. But no, I think this is one of those ones. One of those strange ones where it's like I've heard of it so much, it's almost like I have read it, but it's only because I've just been a lot of information about it has been processed, but I haven't read it. So is that necrophilia again?
Well, it's a strange one because the characters in the book are actually real. One character is Dennis Nilsen, the serial killer from England.
Right.
Dennis Nilsen escapes from prison in a genius way, and then he actually gets on a plane, goes to America, and meets Jeffrey Dahmer. So you've got Dennis Nilsen and Jeffrey Dahmer together going on a big killing spree. and they're bringing people back to Jeffrey Dahmer's house and hacking them up and stuff. So it's like a fiction story with real characters in it, and it's fucking terrifying as well. Very well written, very scary.
That sounds fun. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right, so we've hit the 2-hour mark, just over. So it's been a pleasure once again.
Yeah, of course. Same here.
A pleasure. Where can people find your book, Left on Red?
My website, Left on Red, is on G.C.McKay.com, along with all my others. Preferably, you can get it from there. If you want a signed copy, especially, but also you can just get regular paperbacks, and you can get it on ebook for free if you want to review it, or at least give it a rating. I'd be fine with a rating. I'd take that. But obviously, yeah, if you get a normal paperback, I'm just getting an author copy printed from Amazon in that regard. So it will be printed at the closest place. So some places that's still difficult, but yeah, otherwise you can find me on Amazon at the moment. It is on Kindle Unlimited, although I've had fuck all on that. That's been I thought I'd get a bit more interest, but at the moment I'm locked into it and I'm getting sod all reads, which is a bit of a shame. But you can still grab a copy of it, but it's only through Book Sirens. So yeah, Book Sirens isn't bad actually though, because it's like you can basically still offer it for people to download, but they have to just sign up and like give their word that they'll review it. So we'll see how that works out in the future. But yeah. What about yourself anyway? What's you got a release anytime soon?
Well, I've just forwarded two books to Velox Books, 2 manuscripts, but I'm waiting for their reply. I don't know. I presume they're reading them now. I don't know what kind of response I'm going to get.
So they, are they doing all the things that like a traditional publisher would do? Are they doing all the editing and designing and all that stuff?
Yeah, they did it with. They've taken on 3 of my books already, and they've given them. They've designed new front covers for them. They've edited them, and they're advertising them. I presume on Amazon ads. I don't know where else. So yeah, they take care of everything. I still put them on my own email list and stuff, but they do a lot of the legwork as well.
Does it change your life? Are you lining up the interviews and selling them to Hollywood?
Well, I haven't had any reporters knocking on my door yet, but it's still early days. It's certainly given me more enthusiasm.
Yeah,
it really has, because you know, it's like sometimes you're slaving away at a story or a book. You think, fucking hell, am I wasting my time? You know, it's very.
Why am I doing this?
You never know what's going to happen.
Question that comes up.
But now there's no guarantee that they're going to accept my future books. But at least I've got a publisher who knows my work, and
yeah, exactly.
I know that I'm going to give it to them once I've finished. So it's given me a lot more drive. You know, so yeah.
You need that as well, especially as the years go on. I'm finding like I'm exhausted. I feel like I've written like a few pretty worthwhile pieces, and yet getting them out into the world, and I'm getting, you know, I got kicked off of fucking Patreon and Draft Digital and everything because of my work.
You could be off of Draft Digital. Really?
Well, they've done a sneaky thing because they basically banned my account, but I can still access it. So I can still make an ebook with them. I just can't distribute it, which is a bit cheeky. You know, I think if you're going to ban me, then lock me out of it, basically.
Why did they ban you then?
Heather, basically, they determined, they deemed it to be inappropriate, let's say. And
really?
Yeah. which I find astounding when you've got works like The Slob, and have you read that? Yeah, and
No,
I think he wrote Playground. Yeah, I haven't read that, but I know, yeah, I know what it's about. So it's a bit like, I don't understand what the rules are anymore, to be honest. And yeah,
but usually it's one of the retailers that reject your book or ban it, not Draft2Digital itself.
yeah, don't know where they've got the moral high ground all of a sudden, but it's I think it's actually a repercussion of Amazon, to be honest, because giving anyone the freedom to publish, they're asking for trouble with that. And maybe this will be an issue for self-published authors of a less savory kind of angle, because I just feel like they won't give a fuck about the literary merit of anything. They'll just determine whether it's, you know, something that should be out there or not. But I'm not sure where freedom of speech comes into this, to be honest. But I wish you all the best of luck with the publisher. I hope it goes well.
Yeah,
I'm tempted to reach out to a few literary agents, maybe see what happens, you know, knock on their door.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's one of those things. I suppose I'm so used to doing it off my own back now that I'm always a little bit reluctant to do it, because it feels like it's something that's going to be taken away from me a little bit. But maybe that would be a good thing, especially like having someone else edit it. That would be it would be interesting to see what they would axe, or what they would tell you to, you know, stretch out and all that kind of stuff. But
I think you should reach out to small presses, small publishing companies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we see in the same light, then yeah, probably. But I just find like anyone can have a small press nowadays. You know, we essentially have one whenever we put something out. It's like it's your own press.
Yeah.
You know? I suppose you could get it registered and make it a bit more official as a business or whatever. But yeah, I find a lot of these small presses crop up, and then, you know, they realize how difficult it is to get going, and then they just disappear. So it's it's tricky. I suppose you want one that's been going for quite a while, and possibly is looking to, you know, break the boundaries of what's going on and all this kind of stuff. Or maybe they just want, you know, well-written fucking stories. I think sometimes they don't. I like when I find a publisher that just says, yeah, it can be whatever you want. It's not, oh, I'm looking for, you know, dark fantasy or very specific kind of niches. And I get a bit, I find it a bit like you're taking the piss on you. Yeah, it's like,
it's all very narrowed down, and bloody hell. You can't. You'd have to just write something for them specifically. Yeah, I don't think anybody would randomly come up with that.
Yeah.
And think, oh yeah, I've got a story like that on my computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll submit that one.
Yeah, and to me, it just goes against the whole reason I write. You know, I do it because of a love for it, not because I want to be dictated what I can and can't write about. Just find that a bit naff. But
it's another main problem, isn't it? Do you write for yourself, or do you write for other people? If you want to be successful, you have to write for other people to a certain extent.
Well, you have to consider the entertainment value, I suppose, of what, or at least like whether it's thought provocative or just pure entertainment, whether it's a bit hopefully it's a mixture of all the above, you know, that's what you want. But it's all very subjective, you know. I can understand why some people would read my stuff and never want to hear my name again. That's fine. Like, I get that. But the stuff that's in the mainstream these days, I find very tepid. I just find it bland, really. Like, having read the recent Nobel Peace Prize winner, I just think it's all right, you know. So but I'm never blown away, you know. I'm never like, fucking hell, how did they come up with this? Like, when I read something like House of Leaves, I'm genuinely impressed, but just by the sheer dedication to it. And even or someone like Donna Tartt, I do admire how much is put into it, because it's like, yeah, there's something to be respected there. But a lot of these other books that are coming out, I just find them, yeah, just a bit like meh, whatever, you know. It just feels like content. It's just another book, you know. But
I tend not to read too much high-end stuff. Most of my favourite books, like Dead Inside, it's like about necrophilia. I tend to stick to horror or weird horror. Maybe a touch of sci-fi now and again, but only sci-fi horror. It's got to be focused on horror, you know. If it's too high-end or too commercial, it's going to be a bit bland, because otherwise it wouldn't be as successful as it is. If you want something that's quite shocking or interesting, you got to look towards self-published stuff or stuff that's coming out of small presses. But well, best of luck. I hope it all goes well.
yeah, we'll see. You know,
Don't give up now. You've done the easy part. That's all. You've just finished the easy part. Now you've got to do the hard part. So don't
rope it now then. Jesus, don't tell me that. I'm fucking knackered. I've got no energy.
You've only just got.
I'm excited about, you know, future projects and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really, I get to the end of it and I'm kind of itching to move on to something else, but I want to do a little bit more for this. I think Tribute deserves its own publication, so that's mainly why I'm putting that out there. And funnily enough, this would be my prediction. I think Tribute will actually do better than Left on Red, mainly because it's a standalone, it's quick to read, it's more accessible, and I think it's got the same kind of relevancy as the collection. But I just think there's maybe more of an appeal to it. I could be totally wrong, but this is my prediction for it.
Yeah, it's the one that stood out for me. I did enjoy it. How many words is it?
It's just under 30k, so it's a novella.
Right. That's novella. Yeah, why not?
I do think, why not? Because, you know.
Well, you could turn it into an advert for Left on Red. You could publish it on its own and then mention that it's like a sample of Left on Red.
Yeah. I will be mentioning it as part of the collection, and then that might entice people to pick up Left on Red as well. Also, having an audiobook of it might be good. I'm not sure yet.
I think it is. I think it is. They're very popular.
Yeah, I should probably look into that a bit more, but recording them all for my own is a little bit like it's just more work. It takes quite a while to. Yeah, and sometimes I don't want to get back into the same headspace as I was when I wrote certain stories, because wasn't exactly a healthy state of mind to be in. But I don't know. Maybe if you look at it from a professional perspective, I suppose it's easy enough. Or you can just hire other people to do it and share the royalties. So
yeah, you can do that. It's the best option, really. If you're willing to be tied into ACX, Audible.
Yeah, I did debate that a little bit, because I kind of thought I could try and sell it on the website. Maybe I'd make more money on it that way. But
Find Away Voices is the way to go then. I think if you use those, you're not tied in. I think you're free to sell it elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's like you can only get 25% of the royalty if you do that, and if you let ACX have it, then you get 40%. So it all depends on what your goal is, but I'm pretty sure Audible takes up most of the market with this kind of stuff. So
sure. See you like that. All right. Well, it's almost my bedtime. It's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah. We've been going a while.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Good to
As
speak
always,
to you again.
yeah, likewise.
I'm glad you've been productive, and just keep going.
You
Keep
too,
going.
mate. You too. Thanks for the interview.
Right.
And
All right then.
yeah, sleep tight.
Thanks very much. See ya.
See ya.